Hello everyone, it is Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore and welcome to the Music Masterclass. So this is my weekly series on Thursdays where we talk about making music. We talk about different aspects of making music, take a look at existing music and see what's going on, see what makes things tick. And that's kind of what we'll be doing a bit today. And as is the case, for these last couple months and the next month, we're going to be focusing on the material that we're discussing in the basic music theory course. So if you're in that course, great, you're caught up and you know what we're dealing with. And if not, you still get to kind of pay attention and see what you can pick up along the way. So there's a number of things that I want to try to deal with today. And first up, as hopefully always, I'm going to remember, anyone who's got questions that you haven't already, asked in the community about intervals and the chromatic scale, I've answered a few questions here and there. We've discussed some things. If you've got some questions that, me talking through right now will help with, let's deal with that. I'm hoping people are actually doing the worksheet for this section in particular. The worksheet for the other sections, I feel like for a lot of people, enough of the material is review that the worksheets maybe aren't that useful. But man, we could almost all use practice calculating intervals based on like what does a minor sixth below a D sharp look like, right? All that kind of stuff. All that kind of stuff is definitely worth practicing. So you haven't gone through the worksheets on intervals, highly recommended. Allison, so you got to read a tenor part, is what you're saying? Cool. Yeah, and I've sung alto parts when I've needed to, which is a trip, of course, because my voice doesn't go there, but whatever. So Steven's not seeing video. Yeah, and I've got it on my other system here. As far as I know, it's working. Seem to be testing, so you might try refreshing your browser or maybe leaving and coming back. Those are always a couple standard things to fix. But as far as I know, everything's working. If there's any other questions about intervals and chromatic scale and all that kind of business, by all means, stick them in the chat. But meanwhile, I had mentioned yesterday in the cafe that I want to talk a little bit about a Gordon Lightfoot song, If You Could Read My Mind. And I actually had that queued up, and then, things are what they are, and it didn't work out. So I had it on Spotify and it was not cooperating. So I'm going to go to YouTube instead and assume I can find the song. So and I'll tell you why we're going to look at this, why we're going to take a look at this piece. The thing that's going on here is I want to talk a little bit about the rhythm in it, because we've talked about rhythm, and this gives us an opportunity to talk about it. And then I want to talk about the melody. And, we're going to use this a little bit as a melodic dictation thing. So if you've already tried to transcribe it, great, then you're already a step ahead of us. But I'm guessing most of you have not. So this is going to be slightly problematic in that when I play the video, YouTube's going to notice it and go, okay, yeah, we got to do, we either got to put an ad in it or block out that part of the video. So on the recording, you may or may not hear this. But live, we're going to be able to hear it as soon as I skip past an ad, right? So let me skip past the ad and then get to the song. All right, pause it here. Okay, so here's what I want us paying attention to here. First step is figure out where the tonic is. Figure out where one is. Figure out what note that is. So in listening to it, sing it. Sing to yourself where you hear the tonic being. And then, if you have an instrument handy, find it. But, you don't have to say the answer now because that's not important. What's important is that you be able to hear it. So let's listen here. All right, here we go.
If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell. just like an old-time movie about a ghost from a wishing well. In a castle dark or a fortress strong, with chains upon my feet, you know that ghost is me. And I will never be set free as long as I'm a ghost you can't see.
All right, that's all we need. So we're just going to be looking at that much of the melody, and we might not talk about all of it. And so I want to say that one reason we're stopping there, by the way, is one of the nice things about this piece, as far as my purposes here go, is that is the entire song. I mean, some songs, you know, there's a verse and a chorus and a bridge and all these different sections. And this piece does have a little bit of that going on, but it's all based on that initial melody, right? There's parts where individual little sections repeat differently and so forth. But basically, we got the whole song right there, or at least all we're going to care about. So sing to yourself where the tonic was. I'll play just the beginning again and sing the tonic, find it, and then give me an answer.
If you could read my mind, love.
That's what I hear the tonic as being. Y'all agree? You know, the first chord that happened was emphasizing that note. The melody note came in there. I didn't really need to hear the whole song to understand the key. That's not always the case. Some songs, you know, you might need to hear more because it doesn't necessarily start off on the tonic. But that piece started off pretty clearly on the tonic. And so now I go to my piano, and it is an A. So A is our tonic here. So I'm going to try to sing that melody, and I want you to focus on the melody right now. We're going to talk about the rhythm briefly, and then we'll go on and talk about pitches. All right, so let's talk about the rhythm. Yeah, here we go.
If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell. Just like an old-time movie about a ghost from a wishing well.
So here's what I want to say about the rhythm in this. And we're not going to like transcribe the entire rhythm. You, by all means, go for it. Do it. Do it. Absolutely. Not right now necessarily. But by all means, this would make a great piece if you want more practice transcribing melody, transcribing rhythms, and, you know, we'll be talking about the melody here. But here's the point that I want to make. I'm going to go back to the beginning of this melody, and I'm going to sing it more or less the way he sings it, and then I'm going to sing it differently. And let's talk about the difference.
If you could read my mind, love.
Okay. If you could read my mind, love, is more or less what he sings, right? Let's hear that again. If you could read my mind, love, right? Now I'm going to sing it differently. If you could read my mind, love. So what's different? What's different about what he actually sang versus what I just sang there? If you could read my mind, love, versus if you could read my mind, love. There's a one-word answer to what's different here. I will accept the one-word answer to what's different. But I also want to get a little more specific than that. So it is definitely all quarters when I sang it. And so what he sang was not all quarters, right? So what's the one word? What's the one word that we're going to use? And it's not eighth. There's another word that we're going to use to describe what he is doing rhythmically. Swung is probably true a little bit there. Rhythm is different. Yeah, I'm fishing for a one-word answer. And I mean, those are one words, but they're not the word I'm fishing for. So here's my rhythm. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Syncopation, that's the word I'm looking for. So that's what I sang. If you could read my mind, love, that's rest. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what I sang. Rest, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But what he sang is something more like this.
If you could.
I got to figure out where beat 1 is by getting a little more context.
If you could.
So it's on the and of 2 he comes in. 1. If you could read my mind, love. Each one of those notes was in the offbeat. I sang 1, if on 2, but he's saying 1, if you. So he's saying 1, if you. Oh, wait a minute. Did he put it on the and of 2? No, I already forgot.
If you could.
Yeah, 1. If you could. So 1, 2, and 3, and is what he's saying. So the difference between what he's saying and what I sang is in a word, syncopation. But now I'm going to be even more specific about this. And this is a point that I made when we did the jazz piano holiday course, those of you who went through that. I talked about taking a simple melody and syncopating it, which realistically happens very naturally. If you've listened to a lot of this kind of music, whether it's pop folk like this or jazz or whatever kind of music you listen to that involves syncopation, it's going to come very naturally, and you don't end up overthinking this. But right now we're going to overthink it. What happens is the difference between what he did and what I did was every single note was displaced by half a beat. So I sang 1, if on 2. You could on 3. 1. If you could. So if was on 2, you on 3, could on 4, read on 1. What he's saying was 1. If, so if was a half a beat late on the and of 2 instead of 2. 1, 2. If you, his you was on beat 3, same as mine was. But then 1. If you could, his could was on the and of 3, half a beat early. He came in instead of on 4 with it on the and of 3. And then after that, everything was displaced half a beat. 1, 2. If you could, 4. Read, 1. My, 2. Whatever. It's hard to do that at once. But every single note that he sings is half a beat earlier than my non-syncopated version. So syncopation didn't necessarily mean totally scrambling the rhythms. It meant moving most of the notes half a beat early and one note half a beat late. That's like a textbook definition of how to syncopate a melody. In general, this idea that we're going to syncopate a rhythm by singing each note, anticipating it slightly, that's pretty normal. And then also by taking a note and singing it half a beat late. That's also pretty normal. Depending on the style and the tempo and a lot of other things, you might do more of the back phrasing versus the front phrasing. In this, front phrasing is that idea of singing each note kind of half a beat early. Front phrasing is what that's called, and it fits this style well. Yeah, and there's other styles in which back phrasing is more common. That's more common in a more improvisatory type of style. So anyhow, that's what I wanted to say about rhythm on this piece. So now let's come into the pitches. I want you to focus on the pitches and try to sing along with him and then sing along with me after him, all right?
If you could read my
Okay, the first thing that I'm not going to sing this time. The word if, he barely gets it out, right? You don't really get a pitch on if. It's a schwa, to use the diction word or whatever you call that. Anyhow, it's a sound with, it's basically a pitchless sound when he sings the word if. So you're going to use your imagination to imagine what that pitch really is.
If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell. Just like an old-time movie about a ghost from a wishing well.
And I'm going to stop there because we got to hear the same phrase basically twice. Slight variation in the phrase, in the, the exact placement of where his voice was, but essentially the same melody twice. So let's do it again, and we'll all sing along. I'm going to sing along this time. Whoops. If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell. Just like an old-time movie about a ghost from a wishing well. Notice that second phrase, by the way. About a, just like an old... He actually did more quarter notes the second time. All right, anyhow. So rhythmically slightly different. So let's sing it along. I'm going to count to 4, and you sing it with me. I'm going to go off my memory, you go off your memory. So I'll count to 4, and then you get 2 beats. If you could, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell. Something like that. So, if you got an instrument handy, play it by ear. If you don't, we know it's an A. So play yourself an A scale. We've established that A is our tonic, but which note of that melody was it? I say it's if you, no, not that one. If you could, that sounds like the A. So if you must not be the A, if I'm singing it correctly, which I think I am. So if you didn't know what note you was, knowing that you could, that could is our tonic, well, this is the note that led to the tonic. Notice what I did there. It's a note that led to the tonic. What note leads to the tonic? If you could, right? You could read my, so that's all steps. Then mind, love. If you could, and that first note, I'm going to call it a low A. If you, maybe it's that, maybe it's not, hard to even say. So leading tone, absolutely, right? That is the word we're looking for. If you, he's probably not really singing a low A. It's just a, but there's other places where he does use that low A, I'm pretty sure. If you could read my mind. So mind is a leap down. So let's think about that. My mind, ba-dum, bum, bum, bum. What is that relationship? You can think in terms of intervals and name it that way, but it's the most fundamental relationship that I keep talking about. You don't need to know intervals to know. Hopefully that is do, sol, do. So do, sol, do, or 1, 5, 1 to use the numbers. If you could read my mind, love. Are we in agreement? That leap down was 1, 5, 1. That's gonna be the main leap we're gonna need. We're gonna find out that this song is mostly steps. That's like one of the few leaps we're gonna need. If you could read my mind, love, what a tale. Now, I'm not going to play that note. I'm going to think through it. I know what it is, but I'm going to think through it out loud here. If you is there, what a tale. What note is this? Here's my tonic. What note is this? This is the tonic. This is the leading tone. This is the mystery note. There's my question. What is that mystery note? You can either name it by pitch or give me a scale degree. And I'll wait a little bit for an answer, but I know we're like 10 seconds behind, and that's fine. If you could read my mind, love. So Larry is guessing flat 7. And so I'm going to test this theory by first saying, well, what a tale. It's not that note. It's clearly not 7. Well, let's try 6. If you could read my mind, love. What? No, it's not that one either. So, what a tale. It is, in fact, the G. So, scale degree flat 7. It is the G sharp is scale degree 7. G natural is scale degree flat 7. This is, in fact, the one note of chromaticism, I think, in the entire song, and it appears multiple times. So in my video that I just did and posted yesterday or the day before, whatever it was, when I posted a video on something about this whole chromatic stuff. I don't even remember which one it was. I put the challenge out there. I think it was when I did the sight singing demo, to talk about what we think is the most common chromaticism and why. And I haven't gotten any answers yet. So I don't know if people aren't getting through the videos as quickly, or if we just don't have a good answer. But I made the claim that scale degree raised 4, Phi, 4 sharp. So in the key of A, this note, scale degree 4, raised half step, that would be the most common accidental to find in most music, and challenge people to talk about why. What I didn't say is what I think is probably like one of the other most common ones, and that is scale degree flat 7. And the reasoning is very similar. So I will take any reasoning here why you think flat 7 might be a particularly common accidental, why that would be a particularly common pitch to find in a lot of melodies. And it has to do with things that we've talked about thus far already. You don't need to know anything more about harmony than the things that have been discussed so far in the basic music theory course. So Colin's answer about a blues note is accurate, but not, again, the answer I'm fishing for. But it is true, and it is, so blue notes are referred to as that flat 7th, also the flat 3rd, and also sometimes flat 5th. Those notes are used in blues and therefore show up in jazz and rock, and they are common in those genres. But the note that I'm talking about is also common in Bach. And so we're not talking about blues. We're talking about something different. And I'm seeing some good guesses here. Adding tension to the leading tone is part of a 7th chord. These are true statements, but they're not necessarily getting at the they're not getting at what I'm fishing for. So let me help bait the hook a little better. It has to do with keys and the concept of music not staying in one key necessarily, but visiting other keys. I went through that whole Schumann example that hopefully you watched that video, where I went through that Schumann example and talked about how it started off in the key of C, but then later on it visited the key of G, and then later on it visited the key of F. So things that I said about that is what I'm going for. So anyhow, I'm going to play through that melody while you chomp on that in your brains and try to come up with some more answers. Dennis is saying secondary dominant, and now I would say you have maybe skipped past the answer that I'm looking for. You're absolutely correct. It is secondary dominant, but secondary dominant of what and why? Because there's a lot of different secondary dominants. And so when Graham says part of a 7th chord, yeah, but there's a lot of 7th chords. Why that one in particular? Why that chord that has scale degree flat 7 in it? Why is that one so common? And yes, it could indicate a type of modulation, but why that modulation? Of all the places we could modulate in the world, all the different accidentals that would show up. Ha, Allison, thank you. A related key. So here's what's going on. We have our key of A. The two related keys, the two related major keys, are the key of E and the key of D. I talk about the circle of fifths, and it's the adjacent keys on the circle of fifths that are related. So A has 3 sharps. If we either add 1 sharp by going to the key of E, or subtract 1 sharp by going to the key of D, those are the 2 related keys. So here's our key of A. If we want to visit the key of E, E has 4 sharps, right? Well, it's got 2 of the same ones we've already had, and all 3 of the sharps we've already had, but it adds the D sharp. So if we want to visit the key of E while we're in the key of A, if we're in the key of A but visiting E, it's going to mean we need a D sharp to perform that visit. That's how we visit the key of E, is by adding a D sharp. On the other hand, if we want to visit the key of D, D only has 2 sharps. it's missing the G sharp. It has a G natural. So if we want to visit the key of D, we need a G natural. So those two accidentals, the scale degree sharp 4 is what we need to visit that key, the key that has one more sharp. Scale degree flat 7 is the note we need to visit the key that has one fewer sharp, or one more flat. So this idea that we're going to visit related keys, and every time we visit that key, basically the key of scale degree 5 is the one that has one more sharp. That's the way the circle of fifths works. Every time we visit the key of scale degree 5, we're going to need scale degree sharp 4 to accomplish it. Every time we visit the key of scale degree 4, that's the one that has one fewer sharp, or one more flat. Every time we visit that, we're going to need scale degree flat 7 to accomplish it. Those are the most common keys we visit, at least the most common major keys we visit, and therefore those are really common accidentals to find. And I could grab... is it close enough? Now I'm going to grab it. All right. So Bach, don't fail me now. I'm going to look at the A major. There's G. A major fugue. First accidental we see, D sharp. Can you see that? Maybe, maybe not. Wait a minute. Yeah, maybe, maybe not. But anyhow, the first accidental we see is the D sharp. And then the next question, is there a G natural somewhere? You know, he's got a couple other accidentals. Yeah, there's a G natural here in bar 11. There's other accidentals too. I'm not saying those are the only two. And realistically, you know, when you get down to it, come on, a key has 7 notes in it. There's only 5 notes not in the key. All 5 of them are going to happen at some point if you're writing, you know, complex music like a Bach fugue. But in any case, those two are the ones that are going to turn out to be super common. Here in the prelude, we get right in the very first measure of the A major prelude, we have our D sharp and our G natural. I mean, how perfect is that? I'm so glad I grabbed this. I am so glad I grabbed my Bach. Bach, A major prelude, first measure, we get a D sharp, we get a G natural. It's like, you know, there's my textbook right there. All right, so let's get that melody. Let's listen to it one more time, get the melody, and then I'm going to move on to another topic.
What a tale my thoughts could tell.
What a tale my thoughts could tell. Now, there's some melisma there. What a tale. He kind of slides the pitch while singing that note. Let's not even worry about that. Let's just worry about what the pitches are. What a tale my thoughts could tell, right? It's just stepping down within basically the D scale now because he's visiting the key of D. He's not playing a D chord here. He's playing a G chord, actually. Is what's happening there. And when we talk about chords later on, you know, in another few weeks, we'll be talking about chords, and then I can talk a little bit about why that chord is there. Hint, it does have to do with borrowing from other keys, and we'll talk more about that, but that also is the transition to talking about harmony. And so there's a whole separate course on harmony and chord progressions where we really get deep into why you choose different chords. But we can lay the foundations for that pretty soon. And I just laid a foundation right here. When you see a note that's not in the key, chances are someone is visiting another key. And the reasons for visiting that other key could be that it's a related key, and there's some other ones also, and we'll talk about those things also. All right, Rod, glad to hear that about the circle of fifths. Yeah, circle of fifths is just such a powerful tool, and it is such a shame. Okay, soapbox time. Silly soapbox here. It is such a shame that people learn the circle of fifths as a way of figuring out key signatures, right? You learn that the order of the key signatures follows the circle of fifths, or that the flats, as you add flats, it goes around the circle of fifths, and as you add sharps, and you learn that. And then once you learn your keys, you think you're done with the circle of fifths. And no, that's the starting point for the value of the circle of fifths. Being able to figure out different keys, the circle of fifths would be hugely valuable even in a world where there was only one key. Even if we only had the key of C, the circle of fifths would be hugely important to understand how chords move. And so we'll be talking about that more a bit, when we talk more about chords. But chords follow the circle of fifths. Also, just as a thing, if you have, skipped over the lesson or didn't really remember this, I'm pretty sure in my lesson on the circle of fifths from the key signature, the major keys section, I talk about how I draw my circle, which is a little backwards from how most people draw it. I draw C, F, because I want the fifths to be descending when you read them clockwise. So C I put at the top of the circle like most people do, but then as we go around the circle, so C is at 12 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, I put F when I draw the circle of fifths personally. And some people say, oh, that's a circle of fourths. But no, it's only a circle of fourths if you only imagine intervals going up. As soon as you imagine that intervals can go down, C to F is still a fifth. It's just a descending fifth. So I draw a circle of clockwise descending fifths is what I draw. Circle of clockwise descending fifths, because descending fifths is what chords do. Keys could go either way. I don't care about that. Chords go down a fifth. You take that one to the bank. And in fact, in this song, if we come back to it when we talk about chords, you'll see that. So I'm gonna tell thoughts would tell, wishing well. Let's go on with the rest of the melody, and then I want to move on to talking more about intervals.
Just like an old time movie about a ghost from a wishing well.
All right, so let's listen to this next bit of melody.
In a castle dark or a fortress strong.
All right, in a castle dark. What note does he actually sing for dark? This is like a little unexpected little bonus for me here. I get to talk about this. I have no idea what pitch he's singing on the word dark, based only on his voice. He's not using auto-tune. Auto-tune wasn't the thing in 1970, whatever, 60, whatever, when this song came out. It wasn't 6 years ago, I know that.
In a castle dark.
Right, he's kind of all over the place pitch-wise there, which is fine. It's not a criticism. But it means that I kind of have to put some logic to this. So what note do you think that is? What are you hearing?
From a wishing well, in a castle dark.
If I didn't know what was coming next, I might not know. But when I hear what's coming next,
or a fortress strong,
or a fortress strong in a castle dark is one of those two notes. It's in here somewhere. Or a fortress strong. Once I hear the next note and the next chord, my knowledge of theory helps resolve any ambiguity that was there. So you all are hearing that, and I think you're hearing it in part because he's coming close enough to the pitch, but I think also you are hearing the relationship of that note to the chord and the harmony in your mind, whether or not you're verbalizing that, whether or not you can conceptualize what this means. But I'm going to just tell you what this is. Now we're going to have that secondary dominant. It's an A7 chord going to a D chord. It is modulating to the 4. So when I said that he's kind of visiting the key of D, but he hasn't gotten there yet, now is when he finally gets to the D chord. And now that G has a real purpose for being there. It's to really bring him to that D chord. So armed with that knowledge, you can often figure out pitches that you might not otherwise be able to figure out. I mean, yeah, his voice was close enough to that G that you can hear it even isolated to some extent, but it was shaky, right? And there might be other times like that where there's a shaky pitch that you have to fill in based on logic. So here, logic was telling me that was going to be a G, whether or not I was literally hearing it in his voice. My brain can be filling that in for me. Okay. It's all steps from there. So from here on, I want you to, think about writing out the rest of it, maybe figure out the rhythms of it if you're interested. If you're looking for more pieces to try to transcribe, get the rhythms and get the pitches, we've talked about some of the harder issues in this piece. You're just going to see more of the same as you go through the rest of that verse. So if you're looking for more practice, let's do this one, and then we can all talk about it together. Okay? So I got to talk about a lot of things by just looking at that one song. What I want to do now, though, is come back to a more general idea of talking about intervals. And here, let me open a new score. We're not even going to use the score much, but we'll see. I'm going to use the piano, I think, for most of what I'm going to do here. I've made so in that in the newsletter and the tip of the week. Or not the tip of the week, the my theory rant there. I talked about. I'll give myself a grand staff just in case I need one. I talked about this idea of learning intervals by songs, like "Here Comes the Bride" for a perfect fourth, not being as useful as we wish they were. Okay, and I didn't give an answer to like, oh, this is what we should do instead. Because in fact, other than just getting good at solfege, getting good at finding the notes based on scale degrees, I don't really have a good answer. And the thing is, if you get good at solfege, you don't need to know intervals. Like, okay, I'm going to keep going in that song for a second. Then now somewhere he does that leap. I don't remember where it is. And at the beginning, kind of, that leap is a major seventh. And so if you learn your major seventh as an interval, fine, you can get it. But it's not just any major seven. It's the leap from the do to the leading tone. And we can hear that without knowing the name of the interval. And so this idea that we can sing intervals without being able to name them, well, that's powerful. It gets us off the hook for having to sing intervals in isolation, which is hard and frankly not all that useful is the point I'm making. So let's talk about this, how we're going to get good at singing without naming intervals exactly. We're going to do an exercise here. What I want to do is I'm going to use the key of C now. So we're going to switch to the key of C, all right? I want everyone sing major scale, do, re, mi. We're going to do this thing. I'll do hand signs on it. Here we go. Do, okay. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Coming down. Do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. I was struck with that. And Bali High is definitely one of the typical major seventh songs, but it's probably not familiar to anyone under the age of 50. Like, I'm over the age of 50, and I only know that song because I learned it when I learned what major sevenths were. I think if not for that, I would not know that song. And I'm pretty sure that's true for anyone under 50 also. But yeah, that definitely works. And it does happen to be that same interval. It's, I think it is do to ti. I don't really know the song. I just know the beginning. It's that, isn't it though? Isn't it Bali High? Or is it? I don't even know. I don't know the song. So we just sang the scale. Now I'm going to sing let's sing together do, mi, sol. Do, mi, sol. And let's come up and down. Do, mi, sol, mi, do. Let's go all the way up to high do. Do, mi, sol, mi, do. All right. And yeah, see, that's the thing is, Gordon Lightfoot is not going to be a known quantity to people much younger than me either. Or, for that matter, much older, right? It's like you had to have grown up in the 70s pretty much. And, similar for a lot of people that we might reference. So yeah, it's an unfortunate fact, which is another reason why the song things don't work so well. Because a lot of the songs that people might want to learn are pretty cultural. They're age specific and also culture specific, like certain songs that might be familiar folk songs in your part of the world might be unknown in another part of the world. So anyhow, we've just oriented ourselves on C, C, do, mi, sol, mi, do. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to skip steps for the moment as being less interesting. We're going to sing all the thirds, okay? And we're going to do it like this. I'm going to do it, and you can, as you understand what I'm doing, you can do it with me. And I'm going to sing numbers this time rather than solfege syllables because solfege syllables still make my brain explode a little bit. So once you get the pattern of what I'm doing, you can start following along, and then we'll just do it again. I'm going to go 1, 3, 1, 2, 4, 2, 3, 5, 3, 4, 6, 4, 5, 7, 5, 6, 1, 6, didn't say 8, right? 7, 2, 7, 1. Got the idea? Let's all do it together, starting over at the beginning. 1, 3, 1, 2, 4, 2, 3, 5, 3, 4, 6, 4, 5, 7, 5, 6, 1, 6, 7, 2, 7, 1. So, I'm going to now, hopefully you all tried that, and hopefully you found that not super challenging. We're going to do it now without the piano, okay? And I want you to sing along with me. And then we'll do one without me singing. And then we're going to try something different. Okay, here we go. So sing along with me, no piano. 1, 3, 1, 2, 4, 2, 3, 5, 3, 4, 6, 4, 5, 7, 5, 6, 1, 6, 7, 2, 7, 1. So for me, finding those pitches, not a challenge at all. I have to think a little bit to get the right numbers, but not as hard as I would with solfege. I could try it again with solfege. I'm going to do it again with solfege. What the heck? Let's do it. Let's do that again with solfege. Do, mi, do, re, fa, re, mi, sol, mi, fa, la, fa, sol, ti, sol, la, do, la, ti, re, ti, do. I had to think a little bit harder, but I pulled it off. All right, now your turn without me. I'm going to do hand signs. You can sing numbers. You can sing solfege. You can just la, la, la. I really don't care, but I want you singing. Here we go. Do. So, how'd that go? I got twisted up with the hand signs, so hopefully I didn't throw anyone too badly. My claim is that this is manageable. We can do that. We can learn to do that. We just succeeded in doing that pretty well. But here's the sort of slightly mind-blowing observation about that. Maybe it's not that mind-blowing. Those intervals were all different, right? Some of them were major thirds. Some of them were minor thirds. That was a minor third, right? Because a major third from D would be that. This is also a minor third because a major third would be that, right? Major thirds we're always going to get by, thinking the first three notes of a major scale. That's the way I usually present it. That's a major third. That's a major third. This one is a minor third again. Would be a major. And then is also a minor third because that would be the major third. Choir warm-up exercise. Yeah, and for good reason. It's good. It orients you to the key. It's another version of do, mi, sol, mi, do. It's another version of basically getting yourself oriented in the key or singing a scale. But now we're singing patterns. And if we know a major scale and we've grown up hearing the major scale and music based on the major scale all our lives, it is not particularly hard to do that, even though we were like flipping back and forth between major and minor thirds with barely a second thought. Like we barely even had to think about. We didn't think about it. I'm sure maybe some of you were aware intellectually which were major thirds and which were minor thirds as you were singing them, but I'm guessing almost no one was using that information to help you sing. You were able to sing it by just knowing the major scale. So when I said the mind-blowing thing, I don't know if that was mind-blowing at all, but now I'm going to try something else. Something that if singing intervals was the answer, this would be easier. We're going to sing all major thirds this time. We're going to sing all major thirds. So we'll still go up the major scale, but we're going to sing major thirds each time. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to play along. And this time I'm not even going to try to sing numbers because it's too complicated for me. I'm just going to sing the notes. And so I'm going to go up the major scale, but I'm going to sing major thirds above each note. Here we go. You all can try to sing along, and then we're going to try it without the piano. So it's going to go da da dum, da da dum, da da dum, da da dum, dum ba dum. Bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum. Now, with the piano, I did fine with the piano. Hopefully you did okay too. Now I'm going to try it without the piano, and then you can try it without me. I'm not going to claim I'm going to nail this, so I might not be any help at all, but we'll find out. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. I did it. Yay. All right. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, wondering if I was going to pull that off, frankly. Those are thirds. Major thirds. Can we do the same thing with all minor thirds? Same thing, all minor thirds. I'm not going to make you do those without me. You can do them without me on your own time. We're going to do minor thirds now with piano, without piano. Ba-da-dum, da-da-dum, 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 dum. All right, we're going to do it without the piano now. Da-da-dum, da-da-dum, ba-da-dum, 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 ba-dum. Other than my voice cracking at the end. Okay. I pulled it off. And if you're singing with me, maybe you did too. But isn't that harder? Doesn't that like take more effort. Those are just thirds. Now imagine doing the same thing with sixths. We're going to do major sixth or minor sixth. We could do the same thing. Major sixth this time. Bum, 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 boop, bum, 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 bum. And you could practice that with every interval, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be easier if you do it sticking in the it's going to be easier if you stick within the key. So Margie, yeah, but if we're doing minor thirds, then they're all the same number of half steps, because minor third is always basically 3 half steps, right? Depending on how you count, whether you count starting at 1 or starting at 0. 1 half step, 2 half step, 3 half steps. So a minor third is always 3 half steps. So I'm going up the major scale and then singing a minor third above, which is 3 half steps. A major sixth is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 half steps, if you want to count that way. But major sixths, if I were to want to do this staying in the key, boo-da-dum, boo-da-dum, doo-ba-dum, bum-ba-dum, boop-ba-bum, bum-ba-bum, boop-ba-bum, bum. I just did that without playing. I just kind of put my fingers on the keys. Could I do that that was all staying in the key? Again, it went back and forth between major sixths and minor sixths, and I barely had to think about it. I just had to think about staying in the key. If I have to think about singing major sixths, try it with me. Boom, bum, 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 bum. Nope, I'm off. Okay. I was doing pretty well at first. So, and I was like totally way off at some point. When I went and checked myself, I got all cocky and said, oh, I got this. And then I screwed up immediately after. So yeah, the point is these intervals, as soon as you start leaving the key, it's harder. And so what this is telling us is that it's not really about the interval. It's about placing it relative to the key. That's your success here. So placing notes relative to the key is how you're going to succeed at this sort of thing. And so if you go through those sight singing exercises from eyes and ears, they're gradually introducing these pitches, and it's mostly about scale degree sharp 4, mostly about Fi, and occasionally Te, which is flat 7, and some other miscellaneous solfege syllables in there, some other miscellaneous bits of chromaticism in there, here and there. But yeah, this is what I would say is if it's going to work for you to try to find intervals by singing My Bonnie to find all those major sixths, great. And in that exercise, maybe that's the way to do it. But come on, music doesn't do this. That's not, real songs almost never do that. Real songs stick to a key and introduce accidentals in very specific ways. What a tale my thoughts could tell. Flat 7 going down to 6, that's what flat 7s do. Or in the key of A. Mi, Fi, Sol, right? That Mi, Fi, Sol that I talked about in the video on sight singing, that also is Cremund. First 2 notes of Cremund. So I don't even know what Cremund is. Is that another interval, an interval song, but a reference to a song I don't know? Unless that's the song I know is My Bonnie. I don't know. So what we end up seeing is that the accidentals that occur in real music aren't random. They follow patterns. And so we might as well learn these things by singing the patterns that occur in real music rather than exercises like this. Okay, yeah, so I don't know, I don't know that particular melody. I don't know. I know that psalm, but I know different melodies for it that come up in the U.S. Catholic Church as opposed to, other cultures, churches. So that exercise I just did. So there's this guy I mentioned in the community named Richard Bucas, who is mind-blowingly good. He is like he has like the best ear of anyone I've ever met or even heard of. Jacob Collier kind of level, maybe if you're familiar with him, similar kinds of things, different but similar in ability to deal with intervals at this level. And so that's his warm-up exercise. Singing major six like that, and then singing minor six. Singing minor six up and down like that, and then doing it chromatically. And he can do that at that tempo in falsetto, so he can do it in that octave. And yeah, it's sort of mind-blowing how good he is at doing that. But his music is complex. It's complex both rhythmically. I mean, he's an American musician, but works within a Brazilian tradition and a modern classical and modern jazz type of vibe harmonically. So rhythmically, he's coming from a Brazilian technique, harmonic Brazilian place. He's a guitar player. And harmonically coming from a modern classical, modern jazz place. So his music exploits crazy intervallic stuff like that. So he needs to have that kind of skill, and more power to him. But for most of us, concentrating on mostly diatonic melodies with well-placed accidentals makes great practice. Now, one thing I will say before wrapping up here is eyes and ears are soprano parts. Those are melodies. They're designed to be singable because they're designed to be things that we would want to sing here as a melody. If you really want... so the Richard Bucas I know is from New York. And he's a guitar player. That's you can look him up. If you look him up, if you look up Richard Bucas online, you'll find pictures, and you can see if that's the right guy or not. But alto parts. Tenor parts also, but mostly alto parts. Alto parts are the worst. They're not the worst, but if you want to practice sight singing, grab some complex choral music, not the most simple choral music in the world, but take some choral music that's challenging at all, and then try to sing the alto part, because it's going to have this chromaticism, and it's not going to be quite as logical as the melodies in eyes and ears. So you're going to have some strange intervals, some accidentals not quite resolving in expected ways, and things that just don't fit the voice as well. Now, good voice leading means trying to write it so it is singable, but writing interesting music is just going to mean the alto part is often a little more awkward to sing than, not a little, sometimes a lot more awkward than the soprano part. And the same is true of tenor. So anyhow, that's what I have to talk about today. So by all means, keep working through this stuff. We're going to stay on the topic of chromaticism and intervals going into next week. We'll get into some improvisation and composition exercises. So that said, thanks again, everyone, for being here. Thanks for the discussion. And we'll be back with more next time. And yeah, we'll do some more playing, writing, that kind of stuff, more composing, improvising kinds of stuff next week, I think, but still on the same basic topic. So work the exercises, work the ear training. Let's really do our best to solidify this before we move on to minor scales. So we're going to stick with this for a little bit longer. And next week, again, is the fifth anniversary of Mastering MuseScore, basically, and also, kind of some turning points in what's happening in the future. So we'll talk about that kind of stuff next week, and in MuseScore Cafe especially. So see you all soon. Have a great week.